Hi friends, it's Gwen. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to start my book of the month vlog. I'm going to be reading 3 of my most recent book of the month books, including My Murder by Katie Williams, She Started It by Cyan Gilbert, and The Whispers by Ashley Aldrain. All right, the first book that I'm going to start with is My Murder by Katie Williams, and I'm going to go ahead and read the synopsis on the inside of the flap here. It says, "What if the murder you had to solve was your own? Lou is a happily married mother of an adorable toddler. She's also the victim of a local serial killer. Recently brought back to life and returned to her grieving family by a government project, she is grateful for this second chance. But as the new Lou adapts to her old routines and as she bonds with other female survivors, she realizes that disturbing questions remain about what exactly preceded her death and how much she can really trust those around her. Now it's not enough to care for her child, love her husband, and do the work she's always enjoyed. She must also figure out the circumstances of her death. Darkly comic, tautly paced, and full of surprises, My Murder is a clever, devour-in-one-sitting twist on the classic thriller." So I'm really looking forward to reading this one. Let's go ahead and get started. I made it to page 50 of My Murder, and it's very interesting so far, and I actually really like the writing style as well. So we're following a main character named Lou, and she has a baby named Nova, and her husband's name is Silas. And I believe when she started, she just was reborn. There is this commission called the Replication Commission, and some people have been objecting to it, but basically you're cloned. So she was murdered and then she was cloned, and now she's back, and that has also happened to several other women that is in this like support group. So we have Angela, Fern, Jasmine, Lacey, and then Louise, and they were all murdered by a serial killer named Edward Early. And I'm looking down because I'm keeping notes. But it's interesting because a few weeks after Nova was born, you find this out on page 8, she was actually going to leave her husband and possibly her child. She had a whole bag packed and everything. But now she's thinking, I could have never done that. I could have never left my husband. I could have never left my child. So that's pretty interesting. But all of these women meet. They're in a support group, and it's just kind of like setting everything up. So I'm very interested to continue reading and sharing my thoughts as I do so. About 50% of the way through My Murder. Okay. So here's the thing. I know it's like a murder mystery. We're trying to figure out why Lou doesn't have memories leading up to her murder, and this government program seems a little fishy. Like, it's not like just anybody can go be reanimated, cloned, whatever you want to call it. It's very literary. It's not, it doesn't feel like it's being plot driven. It doesn't really feel character driven. It's a good blend of the two, but it's kind of surface level right now, and I need more from the story. I'm hoping in the second half it will pick up, but this is like a near future, futuristic world where like virtual reality is like very popular and integrated into society. There's been this like weird game that's associated with the murders. There is Lou actually works for this company called The Room, where I believe it's virtual, where you go in and you're comforted by like people virtually or something like that. I don't know, it's all a little bit vague, and I wish that part of it was a little bit more explained. This book is fairly short. It is 291 pages, and I think a book like this needs a little bit more detail, a little bit more explanation in certain parts of the book, but at the same time it's not really focused on the world. It's focused on like what happened to this one lady, possibly the other women in the survival group and stuff like that. So maybe it will come around in the end, but those are my thoughts about 50% of the way through the book. Oh my gosh, there was just a reveal and I'm kind of freaking out about it. And then the next chapter, or the next, like there's chapters in between the chapters, and this one is called Gulp, which is what I just did when I read that. So I finished My Murder by Katie Williams. No one is more surprised than me that I ended up really enjoying this book. I'm gonna give it 4 stars. I don't know, when I was finished, I was just like, that was so crazy, that was so crazy, that was so crazy. And my husband was like, was it so crazy? It just really was. It was so smart. And I don't know, I feel like I have heard nobody else talk about this book, so I really don't want to say too much, because I think a lot of my reading experience came from just experiencing what the author laid out, what they wrote. And I will say that it's gonna be like, I could see this being a 5-star book for someone that loves literary fiction, dystopian, sci-fi, mystery thrillers. Like, you have to love all 4 of those things equally to really appreciate this book, because it had elements from all of those things. I would say that the writing was very literary. I will say that the pacing felt very literary. The plot and the setup is very sci-fi, dystopian, and then also mystery thriller, and not so much thriller, just more mystery. I was never on the edge of my seat or anything like that. As I was reading, in the very beginning, I was enjoying it. In the middle, I was kind of like, okay, what is the point? What are we, getting at? What's the purpose of this novel? And I felt like, since it is this like near future world that we're in, it's like, it's our world, but our technology is definitely advanced. Like, there's VR, and like we have VR right now, but it's like more commonplace in this world. And there's like automatically driving cars, which we also have, but it's like more commonplace. And I don't know, you could just tell it was like a little bit more in the future, and like cloning people and stuff like that. Like, obviously that's advanced. But those things weren't explained so much. The government like facility or business or organization that clones people wasn't really explained. How they chose people to clone, that wasn't really explained. And I kind of wish that it was a little bit like while I was reading the novel, because I'm someone that likes to like understand what's going on, how things work, and be grounded in the story. But I think at the end of the day, that's not what the author was writing about. That wasn't the point of this book. And so since that was not focused on, I'm kind of happy, because I think at the end of the day, like when I finished the book, I would have been disappointed that I got all of that information and all of those details and stuff like that when it didn't ultimately matter at the end of the day to the actual story that the author was trying to tell. Does any of that make sense? Well, anyway, like I said, I rated it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was very smart. Yeah. If you have read this, let me know, and let me know what you thought down in the comment section down below, without spoilers, please, because I think that to enjoy the story to its fullest, you have to just go in knowing that it's like a mix of genres. And you may not understand everything, and that's okay, but that you might end up being pleasantly surprised in the end, like I was. So with that being said, the next book that I wanted to start is She Started It by Cyan Gilbert, and that does not actually release until tomorrow. So I will check back in with you guys tomorrow. Hello friends, I am back to talk about She Started It by Cyan Gilbert, which is the book that I'm going to be starting today. I also have reading sprints with my patrons tonight, so hopefully I can get a big chunk read. I did finish a book yesterday, but I'm not expecting to finish this one today. It's already after 3 p.m., but I had a very long work morning. I had something with Charlie come up. I'm working on a sourdough recipe, so I have a lot of other things going on in the background, but let's go ahead and read the synopsis of She Started It. Okay, so this one says, the party of a lifetime is nothing like what they expected. Annabelle, Esther, Tanya, and Chloe are best friends, or were as children. They drifted apart in adulthood, but shared secrets have kept them bonded for better or worse, even as their childhood dreams haven't quite turned out as they hoped. Then one day they receive a wholly unexpected invitation from another old friend. Poppy Greer has invited them all to her extravagant bachelorette party, 3 days of white sand, cocktails, and relaxation on a private luxe island in the Bahamas. None of them has spoken to Poppy in years, but Poppy's Instagram pics show that the girl they used to consider the weakest link in their group has definitely made good and made money. Curiosity gets the better of them. Besides, who can turn down a posh, all-expenses-paid vacation on a Caribbean island? The first-class flight and the island's accommodation are just as opulent as expected, even if the scenic island proves more remote than they anticipated. Quite remote, in fact, with no cell service and no other guests. The women quickly discover they've underestimated Poppy and each other. As their darkest secrets are revealed, the tropical adventure morphs into a terrifying nightmare. Endlessly twisty, sharply observant, and deliciously catty, She Started It is sure to shock readers until the very end. So that is quite the synopsis. It makes me very excited to go ahead and start reading this. Let's go ahead and do that, and I will share my thoughts as I start. Good morning, friends. Yesterday was kind of an off day. I had a lot going on and I was just dealing with some mental health things because life was throwing me curveballs and I was just not managing it well. Today is a new day and I'm just going to try my best to totally relax. I did start She Started It last night on my Patreon reading sprints, and I made it a little bit of the way through. I think I was like 30-ish%. Chapter 13, page 110. Enjoying it so far. It's funny because like a couple of my other patrons were also reading the same book, and we were all at different stages of the book. So it was just interesting getting updates from them, like of course non-spoilery updates and stuff like that, but just sharing the reading journey with them was super fun. So I'm hoping to actually finish that book today, so we'll see. I'm also baking some sourdough bread. I started doing my own sourdough starter and stuff back in 2020 when the rest of the world was also on a sourdough kick. And I didn't have too much success. I did make like English muffins, pancakes, pizzas. I tried bread, but my bread was never what I wanted it to be. So I got the itch to start my sourdough starter again. So that's what I did. I started it last weekend, I think, on Saturday, and I decided to go ahead a couple days ago and start my leaven and then start my bread. I worked on it all day yesterday, and today I'm actually baking the loaves. The first loaf came out of the oven and it's a little burnt, but I was just following the recipe, and that's the X factor. Everybody's oven is a little bit different, but I figured I would just go ahead and show you the first loaf because it's not terrible, it's just not great, but this is what it looks like. Obviously all the flour on it, but my little cuts are so good. And I have this other loaf right here that I'm about to put in the oven. I let this one go a little too long, but it might still be edible. We'll see. But there's my first loaf. All right, I have all the essentials for some outside reading. I have my book, I have my headphones, I have my sunglasses, I have my notebook, a pillow, the book, the audiobook. Let's go. And it's such a beautiful sunny day. Look at that. Look at that breeze. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to be sitting outside to read today. You guys have no idea. I was definitely living my best life outside, but it's 94 degrees. I definitely got some sun, like even on my stomach. You can see that little like bit right there. So it's time to come in. I was out there from like 12:30 to 1:30, so like an hour. I made it to chapter 19, page 188. So I'm about 50% through. It's good. It's not great. But I'm going into the second half now, and the second half of thrillers are where things really get twisty and turny and dark. So I'm looking for this novel to do that. It's really about these women that went to school when they were younger together, like even elementary school and then like later, you know, maybe middle school. But anyway, the point is that all four of the girls picked on Poppy. They talked about her weight, they set her up on fake dates, they spilled Capri Suns on her and made it look like she wet her pants, and now it seems that Poppy is getting her revenge. But there's secrets between all of them. So it's always been like the 4 against the 1, but even within the 4, there's been like secrets and lies and deceit and stuff like that. So that's all becoming exposed as well. So who's gonna end up on top? We're just gonna have to keep reading to find out. Good morning, friends. It's a new day, and last night I finished She Started It by Cyan Gilbert. What to say about this one? I had such high hopes. I am still glad that I read it earlier than a lot of people, or that I didn't know a lot of people's thoughts. And I'm glad this wasn't one of my most anticipated. This was a debut, so I don't often hear about debuts until they're out. But yeah. Okay, so this book is messy. It has a lot of obnoxious women. And it's kind of like, this is a great thriller, mystery thriller for beginners. I would say if you're new to the genre, you might really enjoy this one. But overall, I was just underwhelmed. It was okay. It was fine. You know, I enjoyed reading it, but I'm definitely not going to like, it's not going to be in my top favorite books of the year. Let's just say that. So you have a group of 4 friends that are invited to a bachelorette party in the Caribbean. And when they all receive their invitations, they're kind of shocked because they're like, why are we being invited to Poppy's bachelorette weekend? But they can't pass up the luxury getaway, so they go. Well, Poppy and these girls have a terrible history. Like, the 4 of them made fun of Poppy all throughout school, ruined like certain parts of her life, like in school, you know. And it's like, why did they think that she was inviting them there? Did they really think that she was wanting to let bygones be bygones? I don't know. It just, from the beginning, you basically know it's a revenge story and who's going to end up on top, because all of the women are terrible. All of them are holding secrets, but it's so obvious what's going on and what's going to happen that I just wasn't shocked by anything. I didn't like any of the women. I wasn't rooting for anybody. I was like, kill them all. And the setting wasn't as lush or as vibrant or as tropical as I wanted it to be. It could have been set on any beach location anywhere in the world. But it has lots of drama. And it's a fun revenge story, you know, so I enjoyed it. I'm giving it 3 stars. And that's all I'm really going to say about that. Yeah. So lots of drama, past and present timelines, back and forth, several POVs. Yeah, do with that what you will, but I'm giving it 3 stars, which means I enjoyed it. That means the last book is The Whispers by Ashley Aldring, which is one of my most anticipated. This one says, on Harlow Street, the well-to-do neighborhood couples and their children gather for a barbecue as the summer winds down. Everything is fabulous until Whitney, the picture-perfect hostess, explodes in fury because her son disobeys her. Everyone at the party hears her exquisite veneer crack loud and clear. Before long, that same young boy falls from his bedroom window in the middle of the night, and then his mother can only sit by her son's hospital bed while his life hangs in the balance. Over the course of a tense 3 days, the women of the neighborhood grapple with what led to that terrible night. People-pleasing Blair, Whitney's best friend, suspects something isn't as it seems. Rebecca, the ER doctor who helps treat Whitney's son, has struggled to have a child of her own. And the all-knowing Mara, the older woman next door, watches everyone's world unravel from her front porch. Exploring envy, women's friendships, desire, and the intuitions that we silence, The Whispers is a chilling novel that marks Ashley Aldring as a major fiction talent. I've heard that there are like trigger warnings for infertility and miscarriage, and there's actually like a miscarriage scene in here, so I just want people to be aware of that. I haven't read it, but I did hear from one of my patrons that read it that it has that. So that is the reading plans. Life plans, I have been summoned for jury duty, and that's why I am here very early in the morning. It is 7 a.m. and I am ready for the day. I don't actually know when I'm going to be able to pick up The Whispers, but I hope it's sooner rather than later. Maybe I'll just be dismissed. Charlie is still in her room, and yeah, we're going to start this day. I'm leaving in about 30 minutes, so I'm gonna eat my egg and cheese bagel, and that will be that. Oh my goodness, friends, it's been a while. It honestly has been a while, but I'm here to continue with The Whispers by Ashley Aldring. I actually did reading sprints with my patrons last night, and I believe I started on page 48, like I read that earlier in the day. And I was making a few character notes, not this part up here, but like down here below the line. And then I have some over here. Don't look too closely if you don't want spoilers though. But yeah, just kind of because there's a few couples. There is Whitney and Jacob, they're a married couple. And then you have Rebecca and Ben, and they're a married couple. And then you have Blair and Aiden, and they're a married couple. And then you have Mara, who is a neighbor. They're all kind of friends, and Whitney and Jacob are hosting a like backyard party. And then she goes upstairs and like yells at her son, and the window's open and everybody heard her yelling at him. And then 9 months later, there's an accident. Jacob has fallen out of the window and he's unresponsive, so he's at the ER. And Rebecca is an ER doctor, so she's closely relating, or she's closely treating Whitney's son. And then Blair is Whitney's best friend, but there's all these like secrets and stuff. But I will say, a lot of people complained about the push because it was marketed as a thriller, and it was more of like a drama, motherhood, contemporary story with also like flashbacks to the past and stuff like that. It was also about like generational trauma and stuff like that. But for this one, they marketed it as a contemporary fiction story, which I'm so happy they did that, because it's not mysterious or thrilling pretty much at all. There is a slight little mystery of what happened to Xavier. But like I said, I did reading sprints last night and I am already well on my way to finishing this one. I made it to page 209, so I read like 150 pages on sprints last night. Like I said, it's not really mysterious. I do like the writing. It's much more focused on these 4 women, Whitney, Mara, Rebecca, and Blair, and their experience and their feelings towards motherhood. And not all people have the same views, and none of them are right or wrong. That being said, they could make right or wrong choices based on their thoughts and feelings. So I think that just makes for a really interesting discussion. Well, friends, I finished, and I'm gonna need a moment to process, to be completely honest. I will say that the tone and just even the genres and the writing was similar, but I don't know, I felt like the push was darker. This had a lot of like messiness in it, a lot of like family dramas, multiple family dramas, because you're really following 4 different women until you find out like everything that happened. But it's not even about the incident itself. It's just about life and being messy and motherhood and marriage. So yeah, there's a lot to process here. It's like on one hand, I kind of want to give it 5 stars. And then on the other hand, I want to give it 4 stars. And when I finished the push, I was like, 5 stars. Oh my gosh. Love it, love it, love it. But, and I won't say there wasn't anything like too shocking or too surprising, but I really thought it discussed motherhood and just that part really, really well. Whew. I really, really enjoyed it. I don't think it's going to hit for all readers, and that's understandable. So I think I've told you pretty much what it's about, but my thoughts and feelings upon finishing it really haven't changed like throughout the story. I'm like, I liked it, very different from the push, and I loved the push. It was one of my favorite books of 2021, so I had high expectations going into this one, and I was not disappointed, but I fear some readers will be, just because the push was like a quiet, slower paced thriller, and this was not a thriller like at all, which I think they did a good job with the marketing, calling it a contemporary fiction novel, because that's exactly what it is. So if you're wanting messiness, drama, the messiness of life, relationships, motherhood, friendships, children, this is the book for you. I also think that Audrain did a really well done job with talking about motherhood in conversations that usually women have with their friends, like their very close friends, and like hushed whispers and like away from prying eyes. And like this felt like a very like open conversation about motherhood. It touched on some things that I've never read about before, but I've definitely talked about before, or I've seen pieces of in other books, but not like a full in-depth view at motherhood. It talked about infertility, miscarriages, and also if you have any like queasiness towards miscarriages, or you're sensitive to reading about miscarriages, you might just want to look away and not read this book, because it goes very in detail several times about miscarriages and all the details. And that's what I'm talking about. It really talks about the details of womanhood and motherhood and marriages and just all of that stuff. And she doesn't shy away from talking about women that feel like having a child can change them as a person and change the dynamic of their friendships and relationships and with their husband and with the other kids that they have and everything like that. So That is the main topic explored in here, but there is that tiny, tiny, tiny mystery about what happened to Xavier, and that part was shocking. And the last line in here, so freaking satisfying, like, but it's not, that is literally not the focus. And I think for my personal enjoyment, if that would have been a little bit more of the focus, I probably would have given it 5 out of 5 stars. But for what Audrain set out to do, it's definitely a 5 out of 5. For my personal enjoyment, it's a 4. So I'm gonna give it a 4. But if you're looking for a book about all those messy topics that I talked about, or it's almost like you wish you had another person to talk to, I think like all women can relate to this in different ways. And it was just very, very interesting. So I'm giving this 4 out of 5 stars. And Audrain continues to be an author that I will look out for. So I'm very, very happy about that. Let's review what I read in this vlog. Okay, so we started off by reading My Murder by Katie Williams, and I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. It was very short, quick, and to the point, and I really hope more people pick this one up. Can't wait to hear more reviews come in. Next up, I read She Started It by Cyan Gilbert, and I was a little bit disappointed. This is a really good mystery thriller for beginners to the genre, or people that don't read a lot of the genre, and people that like cattiness, just cattiness, with a revenge plot set in the Bahamas. This is the book for you. I gave it 3 stars. And last but not least, The Whispers by Ashley Audrain, I'm giving 4 stars. If I could, I'd give it 4.5, but 4 stars. So these are the books that I read. These are my thoughts. Let me know what you thought of these books down in the comment section down below. That's all for today's video. I hope you're having a lovely day or night, and I'll see you guys again in another video very soon. Bye, friends.